This list is a little chaotic, but in the best way. In 2025, I discovered so many brand new to me horror movies that I loved. I also fell down a Giallo rabbit hole, and I dipped into a few zany Shaw Brothers films. And also, somehow I ended up loving a random action-filled rom-com? Who am I? So let's dive into the top 15 of the new to me movies that I discovered last year that have still stuck with me. Welcome back, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps to my channel, Kelsi's Nostalgic Life. Yes, new name, same old me. Here is where, we talk about everything from movies and books to 80s and 90s nostalgia and everything in between. Today it's a movie-themed video. I'm really excited. It's my top 15 new to me watches that I discovered in 2025. So not all of these are 2025 releases, but some are. I don't know if that's a spoiler to the list, but we're about to get into it, so it doesn't matter. Number 15. This is an oldie, but a new to me goodie, I guess you could say. The Mill of the Stone Women from 1960. The essential premise, a researcher travels to a remote windmill where there is this carousel within the windmill that depicts these infamous women throughout history, and some of them are murderesses. But the researcher actually stumbles upon his own mystery and intrigue while studying this carousel in the windmill, because the inhabitants are not what they seem. So this was a slow burn gothic movie. I actually heard about this movie from my friend Coral over at the channel Pretty and Paper Cuts. Check out her channel. She just did a movie haul, which I really enjoyed. So if you're looking for book and movie content, definitely check her out. She's fantastic, love her. And I'm so glad she recommended this movie to me because it definitely had a lot of atmosphere. It definitely had a lot of slow burn vibes, but in the best way. Like I said, gothic kind of vibes and feels. And it was just very visually striking, very
one eternity later,
moody and broody, and I really enjoyed it. By the way, we're going from 15 to 1, in case you couldn't tell from the first thing on my list, which was number 15. So next will be number 14, and then we're going to go all the way to number 1, and yes, these are ranked in order of, I guess, least favorite to most favorite, because these are all favorite new to me watches. So number 14, this one is the rom-com I mentioned in the intro, or that I teased, and this is more of an action-filled rom-com. This is Grabbers from 2012, and it's not only a rom-com, it's also an alien invasion movie, so this is very diverse, lots of elements going on all at once, but honestly, it had a lot of heart, it was funny, it was fun, it was thrilling, intense, and also silly. I just loved it very, very much. Seems like there'd be too many things going on, but I think it all flowed and worked together really, really well. And, by the way, I watched it for St. Paddy's Day because the movie takes place in a little village off of the coast of Ireland. Essentially, when aliens start to invade, it's up to two kind of mismatched cops to try to save the town. One of the cops is an alcoholic, the other is a very by-the-books, by-the-numbers types of person, and, he is trying to get over losing his wife, she is trying to prove herself on the job, and their dynamic is really, really great. Love it. And I don't know, there was just something about it that really hit home for me in terms of it just worked. Comedies don't often, especially newer comedies, I say newer, 2012 still quite a while ago now, but this to me is a newer comedy. I like comedies from like the 80s and 90s, but this one actually worked for me. I did laugh, I did think it was cute, and I think the biggest thing that was important to me is that it had emotion and heart and characters you could get behind and actually like and root for. Number 13 on my list, we've got our first appearance of a Hong Kong film, but there may be more on the list. But this one is The Seventh Curse, and it stars quite a few people, but it stars one of my favorite actors of all time, Chow Yun-fat. This one is crazy. I originally rated it a 5, but now that more time has passed, I'm lowering it to a 4.5. Almost every movie on this list are either rated 5 stars or 4.5 stars. So there's a mix here, but basically, if a movie is 4.5 stars for me or higher, it's a standout. It's a movie I will watch more than once. It's a movie that I really, really loved. It's a new to me favorite. So just because this was lowered from a 5 to a 4.5 doesn't really mean much. There were just a few movies on this list that I felt like I had to put closer to 1 than this one. Right away, I loved it. It was bonkers. It was crazy. It had crazy effects. This is from 1986, and the description on Letterboxd says, when a young doctor attempts to rescue a girl about to be sacrificed by a tribe in the middle of a jungle in Thailand, he is damned with 7 deadly blood curses and must return there to find a permanent cure. And again, it's like balls to the wall crazy with its effects, with the action, with even the dialogues kind of zany and out there, but that's what makes these kind of films so fun for me, so I really loved it. I enjoyed it. It was like, what is going on? What the hell? They're throwing everything at the wall, see what sticks. The whole thing worked for me though. All of it stuck. And I had a great time. Highly recommend if you don't take your movies too seriously and you want to have fun with your horror, because this is definitely like a horror-leaning foreign film that I think actually works, and it's of its time, but in the best way, if that makes sense. Next up, number 12, it's our first Giallo on this list, but not the last. That's a spoiler. Alright, so this, number 12, is Four Flies on Grey Velvet. It is a movie directed by Dario Argento. He is one of my very favorite directors, and he's directed a lot of different Giallo films. But he's also directed just regular Italian horror films. Not every movie of his is a Giallo, but look at this great 4K that I have. I actually watched this on a just plain old DVD that I had bought to be able to watch it, and then I discovered they came out with a 4K. Severin did, and I will use this copy to watch anytime I watch this movie in the future. So I'm going to look at the premise from Letterboxd to tell you what it was about. So it says, a drummer in a rock band is being stalked by a mysterious man, and chaos ensues. This movie was released in 1971, one of the few Argento films I had not already seen. Loved it. Great score. The score is a banger, but that's kind of par for the course when it comes to Argento films, so this is not really an unusual thing. All of his movies have great scores, more or less, at least from my experience. I haven't watched his later films, which apparently are more duds, but this one was not a dud. I really loved it. I had a great time with it. I don't want to give too much of the mystery away. If you don't know what a giallo is the Italian word for yellow, and back in the day, in Italy, they used to republish American mysteries and other foreign mysteries in Italian, and they would brand them with a yellow cover. Those books came to be known as Giallo books because of the yellow cover, since Giallo means yellow. Then, famous Italian directors started to put their spin on the Giallo genre, but in film, not in book form, so in film form, and then it just kind of took off from there. There are other non-Italian movies that are considered Giallo movies as time went on. Lots of different countries put their spin on Giallo films and have turned out their own versions of Giallo movies, but Dario Argento, one of the famous Italian directors who helped make this a standout genre from the 60s, 70s, 80s. I love this movie. Not his best Giallo, but I'm so glad I watched it, and I will be watching it again. Again, you don't really want to give away too much, because Giallo movies usually involve a mystery, a black glove killer, or some supernatural element that you have to figure out what is going on. So, with that being said, I don't want to say too much about what it's about. The artistic elements of this film really stood out, and again, that is another staple of Giallo films is the artsy way it is shot and edited, and the color scheme and the lighting. So this had all of those things, and that is why Argento is one of the best directors of Giallo films. And so that's why his movie had to make it here on the list. Number 11 on my list, we've got another film from 1971, and it's another Giallo, but by a different director. So here we have, I'm holding it upside down. This is a lizard in a woman's skin, and I don't want to show the cover too closely because it's kind of scandalous. This is branded to look like a Giallo book cover. This was directed by Lucio Fulci, another famous Italian director who, yes, directed a lot of Giallo films, but also other random horror films as well. Alright, so this one, very trippy. I will read you the letterbox description because it's kind of a zany description. It says, the daughter of a politician has vivid nightmares involving sex orgies and LSD. In a dream, she murders a neighbor she envies and wakes up to a real investigation into her actual neighbor's murder. So was it her because she dreamed about it, or what is going on? This was a really intriguing mystery, and like many Giallo films, the artsiness of it, the cinematography, the lighting, all top-notch, grade A. And that's why it had to make my list. I liked it just a little bit more than Four Flies on Grey Velvet. This one just, especially the opening sequence, is very off-putting, but also it's kind of like an orgy, so it's like, ah! But it is so well done that it actually makes you feel tense, and it doesn't really scream horniness, because there's like sinister stuff happening, not just like sexy good times. Anyway, I don't know how to describe it, but this movie is awesome and a lot of fun. And I don't know, Fulci is one of my favorite directors along with Dario Argento because of just the way he takes a premise that you just read on paper and he makes it work. Because you read that premise, or you hear me read it to you, and you're like, how is this going to work in movie form? Because the premise sounds bonkers. And it is, but it works. And he executes it quite well in this case. I had a blast. Now we're getting into my top 10, and here we come to my first 2025 newer released movie. So this next movie on my list, Dead of Winter, it is from 2025. So I really love this one, but it is not a horror movie like a lot of movies on my list. This is a thriller. I would definitely consider it more of a thriller, but it is a thriller with great character development. That is the number one reason you should check out this movie. Emma Thompson is in this, and she is fantastic. She is zany and quirky, but she's also badass and also vulnerable and kind of sad, so you feel for her as well. So it's a fantastic film, especially when it comes to the performances and the main performance by Emma Thompson. So here is the premise. A widowed fisherwoman traveling alone through snowbound northern Minnesota interrupts the kidnapping of a teenage girl. Another reason I really enjoyed this movie is because it depicted grief so well, and that was a big part of the story. And sometimes I like stories that have an element of grief to it. This one definitely had that. It made you feel for our main character even more once that was explored further, and also it had kind of an element of a gray villain. Like, not everything is so black and white, and I thought that was fantastic. At least one of the villains wasn't black and white. It was great. There was kind of some muddying of the waters where you were thinking, how would I react in this situation? Really unexpected. I just picked it out randomly to watch because I was trying to watch more 2025 releases at the time, and this one was a winner. So I think this one's not being talked about enough, so I highly recommend it if you haven't heard of it. And again, there's multiple movies named Dead of Winter, so make sure you're going to look up, if you're going to watch it, the one from 2025. Moving right along, number 9 on my list of new to me favorites that I discovered in 2025 is dun, 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 dun. Terrible drum roll. Cue the real good one. Alright, we've got The Last Matinee from 2020. I don't know if I want to call it a pure Giallo, but it's definitely an homage to Giallo films. So there's not a lot of Giallo movies you'll find after the early 90s. They started to decline in popularity, and not a lot of directors were making Giallo films anymore. So this is a newer Giallo movie from 2020. And again, the whole idea of it was paying homage to the classic style of the genre or the subgenre of Giallo. So there's so many winks and nods in this movie that if you're a fan of Giallo films in general, you will pick up on one. Like, I think in the movie theater, because that's where this movie takes place, within a movie theater, there is a poster of Dario Argento's opera, and that is a famous, wonderful, amazing Giallo film. It's one of my very, very, very all-time favorite Giallo films. So I thought that was a little kind of nice little wink in the film, but also the lighting is very, very much an ode to the classic lighting style in the most famous Giallo films. And there's even some eyeball scenes. And if you have watched multiple Giallo movies, you know that eyeballs can play a big role in that for some reason. There's even a Giallo film called Eyeball, which I really enjoy. I saw that years ago, so it wouldn't have made the list, but that one's a fun one. Alright, so the premise is, this is set in 1993, even though it was released in 2020. So it's set in the 90s, and spectators at the last screening of a horror film at a downtown cinema fall one by one into the hands of a sadistic and ruthless killer. And yes, is he wearing gloves? I believe he is. I'm pretty sure he is from the movie poster. But the kills are crazy too. The kills are great. And that's another thing. Sometimes Giallo films have some really cool kills, and sometimes just the mystery is the main element. It really just depends on the film you're watching. But yeah, I really love this one. I thought it was a successful and well done ode to the overall subgenre of Giallo, and I highly recommend it. Alright, number 8 on my list, and we're moving back to a 2025 release, we have Sinners! I really liked this more than I thought I would. I thought this was so well executed, so well acted. It had emotion as well as action, and it didn't feel like pure horror just by itself, but I think the mix of the emotional story and the action, along with some horror elements, all just worked perfectly together to form a really entertaining movie. And like, that's what I look for at the end of the day, is a movie that entertains me, and that's what this is. I know there's arguments out there, was it really a horror movie or not? I don't really care what the label is. I enjoyed it, period. Alright, so here's the premise. According to Letterboxd, trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. And what I loved about this, well, there were a lot of things I loved, including the things I've already mentioned, but one of my favorite parts of the entire movie is there is a musical sequence where this group of insidious individuals outside of this speakeasy start singing a classic Irish song, old classic Irish song, and it's one of my favorite Irish traditional songs, and it was so good. I was like, oh, I can't believe they're playing this Irish song. It was great, and it seems like it would be random, but it makes sense within the story if you've seen the movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, you should totally check it out. I hear that it's been, I think, nominated for the most Oscars ever? Or maybe the most Oscars for any horror movie. I have to go look up the stat, but it's been nominated for a lot of awards, and if you check it out, you'll see why. I think it was really well done. Not everyone I've talked to has loved it, but I loved it, and that's why it made the list. Number 7, it's the movie that introduced me to the wonderful production company, the Shaw Brothers. Now, if you've never heard of the Shaw Brothers, it's a Hong Kong production company that put out a lot of famous kung fu movies, but also they did put out horror movies as well. And that is what I discovered when I picked up this movie. I kind of went down the rabbit hole of trying to find more and more Shaw Brothers produced horror movies. Fantastic. So this is Corpse Mania, and this was released in 1981. Essentially, the premise is a necrophiliac killer is murdering prostitutes at a brothel. But this is kind of a Hong Kong version of a Giallo movie. There's great lighting, wonderful cinematography. It's really a beautiful film for having such a disgusting premise. And it does have disgusting scenes. I love this movie, and I gotta give props to my friend Cameron over at the channel Library Macabre. Cameron Chaney is the one who introduced me to this movie. I saw on a Patreon update that he watched this and enjoyed it. And I got intrigued by his discussion of what the movie was about, and he said it was basically like a Hong Kong Giallo style movie, and I was like, I love Giallos. I must find this movie and watch it. So I bought the movie, because you can't find it streaming at the time, or I couldn't at the time. I don't know if you can now, but I bought it just to watch it, sight unseen, and I'm so glad I did, because this was a banger, and it got me to go down a Shaw Brothers rabbit hole to find more horror movies by this company, as I said, and everyone has been a blast. I truly think it's a great production company. I've got to check out more of their kung fu based movies, but when it comes to horror, I'm loving everything I've checked out from them, and this is the thing that started it all. Again, wacky premise, really gross premise, and gross scenes, but so well done, well filmed, well lit, and a really interesting mystery. So this was a good one in my opinion. I had a blast with it. Next up, another Giallo makes the list. This is number 6 on my list, Who Saw Her Die? This is from 1972, and here's the Blu-ray cover. This is a release from Arrow. I love this, but not everyone, I think, who has seen this loves it. It is a slow burn, but like many Giallo films, it's super atmospheric. There is a great mystery at the core of it. The freaking music, the score is incredible. I loved it. I watched this as a watch party with my, I think, Giallo July group during Halloween-a-thon. I played it as a watch party, and a lot of people enjoyed it. I really just, there was something about this, especially the atmosphere of the whole thing, that worked for me. I don't think it would enrapture everyone like it did me. There was just something about the mood of it that worked. All right, here's the premise. A young girl goes missing and dies, and then her father essentially decides to take the investigation into his own hands, and there's more going on than meets the eye. And that's where the mystery comes in, which there's usually a mystery at the heart of many Giallo films. This one definitely, that is the case. Highly recommend, but again, you gotta be okay with a slow burn, because it's definitely a slow burn. But if you love beautiful visuals and beautiful cinematography and beautiful music, I don't know, I can't imagine you can't at least appreciate that part of it, even if you don't enjoy the story as much as me. I think you might at least appreciate those other artistic elements. All right, we're moving into our top 5. At number 5, we have an Italian movie, but it's not a Giallo. This is just an Italian-directed great horror movie. This, you could see here, it's in Italian, but the English translation is Cemetery Man. And this was directed by one of my favorite directors, and he directed another film that I absolutely love called Stage Fright, and that is Michele Soave. So I hope it's right, but I looked up the pronunciation before I made my notes. So essentially the premise, we've got a cemetery watchman, hence the title Cemetery Man. He is in charge of, for some reason, killing zombies that arise from his cemetery that he watches over. So, for some reason, every body that is buried, not everybody, but a lot of the bodies buried in his cemetery come back to life. But there is so much more to this movie than meets the eye. There's so much more to this than the surface level story. It's a story about friendship. It's got really interesting social commentaries. In this special release from Severin, this is like a 4K Blu-ray release, there is a wonderful booklet with a whole bunch of awesome analysis of the actual movie, and I read the whole thing, and fascinating. Like, it really made you think about the movie even more in depth after reading this booklet, and it made me appreciate it even more. This would be the kind of movie you could pick as a film club movie, and it would be just ripe for discussion, because again, there's a lot of metaphors in this. There's a lot more to it than the zaniness that is on the surface. There's a lot of dark humor in this. There's also some romance, some unexpected romance for, like, seemingly a zombie story. But yeah, it's not going to be for everybody. It's a little wacky, it's a little weird, and at times it's a little off-putting, but again, it's got something to say, and you really got to dig deep to see what it's trying to say. It's not just a movie that you might understand right away, but if you like something that you can dig your teeth into when it comes to analysis, I think this could be really fun for you to dissect and to ponder on after you watch it, and also look up stuff about it and read about it further, and I think you will enjoy the process of doing that. I know that I did when I read the booklet after, so highly recommend. Really thought-provoking and strange and weird, and also visually beautiful and appealing, like many of this director's films. Very visually striking. Again, like Giallo films, but this is not a Giallo movie. I would just call it a horror movie, but it's also kind of a dark comedy. A black comedy, as they would say. And this one was released in 1994. Alright, back to another newer release. We've got Weapons from 2025. So this was almost going to be my number 1 2025 release, but there might be another 2025 release higher up on this list. You'll have to wait and see. Just a few minutes to wait and see, but still. So Weapons was a lot of fun. There's people who argue again, just like with Sinners, if this is a pure horror movie or not. I really don't care what you call it. I thought it was entertaining. I thought there was some kind of dark humor in this too. Like, there was this police officer who was really zany and funny, and his interactions with this drug guy was also very funny, and then some of the teachers' interactions was funny. So there was some laugh out loud moments that I think are more easy to interpret as funny moments compared to a movie like Cemetery Man, where the humor is more hidden and it's even darker. So this is lighter in that way, but the topic of missing kids is still dark topics and dark subject matter. Essentially, the premise: when all but one child from the same class mysteriously vanish on the same exact night at this same exact time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. There is some comedy involved, there is some heavy character acting involved, which I loved, especially with the main villain, who's not your typical main horror movie villain. And again, you can debate on if this is a horror movie or not. I don't really care. I just thought it was entertaining. It was well acted. It never made me feel bored. So in that case, it was a success. And there are very few modern movies that make me feel like that. I'm very picky. So this one really just struck out to me as a well-made movie, and I loved it. All right, Shaw Brothers is back. Another movie from that studio, The Boxer's Omen. And not everyone likes this movie. Cough, cough. David Sodergren, author David Sodergren, one of my favorite authors of all time, he does not like this film. And if you've been on any of my live streams, or if you're on my Patreon, I have mentioned this many times. It's kind of like a running inside joke that everyone but David Sodergren knows about. So, he actually said, the premise sounds bonkers, but it's somehow very boring in its execution. And I'm paraphrasing, but essentially that's the gist of his review, and I gotta say, I do not agree. I even watched this movie twice in 2025, so I watched it for the very first time in March, and then I watched it again with my friend Cameron when I went to visit him and Benjamin in October, and both times I had a ball. In fact, I almost threw up the second time, because there's this gross scene with food and barfing, and it's gross, and it makes you want to barf. But anyway, the effects go from cheesy to amazing. It goes from how did they achieve this at the time to this is ridiculous, this bat looks like a piece of felt. But either way, in both cases, I feel like it works and adds to the film. Essentially, it's kind of hard to sum up the premise, but this is the premise. A boxer's brother goes to Thailand to avenge his brother's in-ring accident, but gets wrapped up in an ancient curse somehow during his trip. And this curse is somehow connected to him and his family. And then, this is my own words, black magic ridiculousness ensues. And so there's like a battle between good and evil, and it's just zany, it's wild, and yeah, it's ridiculous, and it might not work for everybody. Cough, cough. Like, people like David Sodergren. But for me, I just thought it was a lot of fun. I know people who I was on the Dread broadcast with didn't like it. Some people didn't like it, and others did. So it really just kind of depends on the person. But I like cheesy and corny and over-the-top things, and this one did not leave me bored at any point. I distinctly remember the first time I saw it, and it made me laugh out loud, it made me gasp, it made me be like, what the hell is this movie? And it was just kind of further cementing why I need to watch more and more Shaw Brothers movies, essentially. So I was hooked, and definitely wanting to check out more by them after Corpse Mania first, then The Boxer's Omen, and I was like, okay, I'm hooked. I will watch any Shaw Brothers horror movie at this point. And yeah, this one was great, but again, beware. It's got craziness, it's got zaniness, it's got nudity, it's hard to watch. It's got barfing scenes, so you've been warned. Don't just go watching it saying it's my recommendation. You know, just beware, because it's not going to be for everybody, and it is really gross at times, but I liked that, because I'm twisted. Alright, just two more left. And I have talked about these two movies in other places, like on podcasts, but what's number one? What's number two? What's going to take the number one spot? Alright, so let's go. We'll start with number two. Again, that's how countdowns work. So number two comes first, and my number two favorite film that was a new to me discovery in 2025 was dun, 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 The House with Laughing Windows. It is another, quote, Giallo, and I'm using air quotes because in my opinion, this isn't a pure Giallo. And I was actually under the impression that perhaps maybe I was the only person out there who liked this movie as much as I did. This was a 5-star, hands down, my favorite old school, new to me favorite new watch that I discovered in 2025. Lots of freaking atmosphere, like dripping with dread. From the very opening credits, like there's this kind of really weird filter, and it looks like this hanging dead body with this really sinister voiceover, and right from that beginning part, you're sucked in, or at least I was. Now, when I looked on Letterboxd after watching it, and preparing for talking about this movie when I was a guest on the Dread broadcast, I realized that other people don't like it. Not only does David Sodergren, the author who I always kind of rag on his movie reviews, or not really rag on them, but like compare them to how they're so different from mine sometimes, not all the time. But in this case, I think he gave this 2 stars, whereas I gave it 5. Not only did David Sodergren have a different rating than me, much different rating, but also another big person who I follow and like has a different opinion of this movie than me, and that would be Daniel from the Cobwebs channel. I saw that he also gave this around a 2 or 2.5 star. I can't remember off the top of my head, but some of the criticisms that Daniel wrote specifically was that this doesn't have some of the bonkers craziness that gets associated with Giallo movies. And I could see that criticism. That is a valid criticism, because this is an uber slow burn. But what it has is the creeping dread, the atmosphere. Sometimes with a book and with a movie, I like a good slow burn. And this is one of those cases. But I never felt bored. Now, there were some long drawn out parts. Especially there's this romance angle, but all of it is strange. All of it is shot beautifully. All of it is intriguing. And the ending packs a punch and is really creepy. I don't know, I just loved the lighting. And the great thing is, so when I was talking about this on the Dread broadcast, it turns out I wasn't the only one who was on that agreed that this was a great movie. So I was glad that even though Daniel and David Sodergren disagree with how I feel about the movie and they didn't like it, whereas I loved it, there are other people out there who do also love this movie. So I think this would be, I guess, a case-by-case basis. So would I recommend it to everyone? If you don't really like a slow burn, if you don't really like movies that are more about atmosphere than actual substance, even though I think the mystery at the core of the story has substance, but if, I guess, the visuals and a slow burn isn't going to be enough to get you through a movie, then maybe I would pass on this one. But if you're intrigued, I say check it out, because it might work for you like it did for me. And this is a nice Arrow release. I actually haven't watched this version. I originally watched this in 2025 when I first saw it using this DVD. So just a plain old DVD copy, but now it's got a nice Arrow 4K Blu-ray release, and I'm really excited to check this out eventually. And it came with like a booklet and all kinds of cool stuff. So very excited to check out this newer edition that I purchased. I think at the end of 2025 is when I got this. Now, the premise of this: a young painter who does restoration work is commissioned to save a controversial and creepy mural located in the church of an isolated village that is filled with secrets. It's like literally somebody dying. It's a very morbid mural, and it's in a church, and he's commissioned to go and try to restore it, and stuff evolves. There's a whole mystery in this creepy village, and it's a really fun time, in my opinion, in terms of the atmosphere, everything, the mood. I loved it, and the way it was shot, beautiful scenery, really creepy sets, like in the village. Like there's this house that actually has these painted creepy mouths on the windows, hence the name of the movie, and it's great. This movie is from 1976, and again, I loved it. Will you? I don't know, it depends, but if you're curious, I say go ahead and maybe give it a shot. Alright, that only leaves us with the number 1 spot open and left to talk about. Dun 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 dun. This is crazy to me. A 2025 movie lands at the number 1 spot for me. This is unheard of. And not only is it a 2025 newer release movie that I watched within the same year it was released, but it's a new release horror movie, which I am notorious for not always liking newer horror movies. A lot of times it's because of the effects. But this one was everything a horror movie should be, in my opinion. And that is Bring Her Back! Oh, it was so good! Now, this film had it all. It had really convincing, disgusting scenes when it came to, like, the effects. and the horror elements, but it also had an emotional story. It had characters that you were just rooting for. Also, some characters, one in particular, was despicable and you couldn't stand her, and it made you feel uncomfortable. It was so good. It was so good. So many moments that I squirmed and I had to look away. Hardly any movies do that to me. There have been some more modern movies that made me squeamish, but this one definitely did it multiple times with some of the specific scenes. Oh, I can't get into it because it'd be spoilers. But yeah, this reminds me of why I love horror as a whole. It reminds me of like different things horror can do in terms of how it can make you feel things that are not just being scared. Because again, this is a sad, depressing movie. You do not want to watch this if you're looking for a fun horror movie. If you want a fun horror movie, watch a Shaw Brothers horror movie. Do not watch Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back is for when you want to feel depressed. Maybe you don't want to feel that way, but you don't mind it. You know it's gonna happen and you've come to grips with it. You're like, oh, I'm resigned to it. It's fine. But it handles the grief element so well, and it just adds to the story. It really elevates the story. It elevates the stakes. The characterization is fantastic. It makes you think what you would do in that situation, and just so many gross elements. Like the horror is like A+ horror. Like all of the effects were so well done. It didn't feel very CG heavy like a lot of newer horror films do nowadays. It did not feel like that to me. It could have been released at any time. Like, it didn't feel like it was a modern movie. It just felt like a well-made, heartfelt, emotional, hard-hitting horror movie. Like, a pure horror movie. Like, again, like I said, I think the best phrase to describe it is what you want horror to be. Like, the kind of movie that defines what horror is and what it can achieve. Because, again, it's telling a story not just for shock value, it's telling a story that is bigger than the surface level. It's not just like a cheesy, campy time. It's not just trying to get you scared. It's not just full of jump scares. It's got some meat on its bones, and that's what I loved about it. So, there you have it. That is my list. Do we have any favorites in common? Have you seen any of these movies? What did you think about the movies, if you have seen any of these? Did you disagree with any of my ratings of these films? Again, all of these movies on my list are either 4.5 stars or 5 stars. When we get to basically, I'm gonna see, number 6 to number 1, all of those are 5 stars. I think maybe number 7 could have been a 5-star. Corpse Mania. I can't remember if I gave Corpse Mania a 4.5 or a 5, but it's so close. If it wasn't rated a 5, it was like almost a 5. Anyway, regardless, I loved all of these films, whether they were 4.5 or 5, doesn't matter. They all made my list for one reason or another, and in some cases for multiple reasons. I would recommend them all, but again, I think it depends on the kind of person you are and the kind of movies you like, to where it would depend on if you would enjoy the movie as much as I did or not. And I totally understand if you've already seen some of these and you did not enjoy them to the same level I did. Totally understandable. I truly think that's what makes talking about movies online so much fun, is to discuss how we all have different opinions and why. And as long as we do it in a respectful way, it doesn't matter if we all might agree to disagree. That kind of makes the conversation a little fascinating. All right. That's everything I wanted to talk about today, but again, leave some of your favorites that you discovered in 2025. It doesn't matter if it was a 2025 release or an older release that was new to you. Let me know any of your favorites down below, and if you want to leave an emoji just to tell me you were here and you don't want to answer any of my other inquiries, then how about leaving a little VHS tape, because you know I love a good old VHS movie, and some of these, I'm sure, are available on VHS, but I just happen to have most of them on nice new 4K releases or Blu-ray releases, so I'm really excited about some of these editions that I haven't watched yet, especially because I love the movies, and I can watch the newer editions the next time I rewatch the movie, so I'm excited. Alright guys, thank you so much again for watching. I appreciate you. Remember to leave a like, and also leave an emoji or an actual written comment if you can, because either of those really, really help, and so does the like. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future content from me. I'm sure I'll be doing a book video coming up here soon, but for this time, that is it for me. Till next time, you know what you can do. I don't know why I shook my head so emphatically. Keep on killing it. Bye, guys.